Today, we are going to talk about one of the main functions of ZTA, Zero Trust Network Access. You have probably heard over the years that almost all analyst announcements predict that VPNs will be replaced by ZTNA. Moreover, in recent years, when the number of remote workers is sharply increasing due to the pandemic, you may have heard more often that ZTNA will be a troubleshooter. Even so, few companies have actually introduced GTNA. According to Global Market Insight research data, the VPN market, which is expected to be replaced, achieved sales of $3 billion in 2020 and is expected to grow to $12 billion in 2027. How did this happen? What is impeding the expansion of GTNA? Why is VPN still alive and well, contrary to what countries, analysts, and vendors claim that we need to go from VPN to GTNA now? Today, we will look at the reasons why many companies are not introducing GTNA, unlike the fact that the need for GTNA is greatly increasing according to change in the IT environment. And we will discuss how the GTNA market will change in the future. As you think of GTNA, the word that comes to mind is Zero Trust. Zero Trust was firstly developed in 2010 by Forrester analyst John Kinderberg. With cloud transition, increase of remote workers, and the increase of BYOD devices as the boundary that has been divided into trust and untrusted networks has become blurred. Boundary security models so far have begun to have limitations in responding to threats. Kinderberg developed Zero Trust as a security strategy to respond to new hybrid IT environment. At the same period of time, Google, which suffered significant damages from China's hack, became acutely aware of the vulnerability of remote access and began developing its own zero trust system. For this, Beyond Corp was established, and this is where they developed the software-defined perimeter, SDP, which you have often heard a lot about. This organization is now leading the Beyond Corp Alliance. The reason why there are people who sometimes see Zero Trust of Forrester and GTNA of Beyond Corp as the same meaning started at the same period of time, and it seems to be a modern security model based on a similar principle of never trust and always check. Although it is a similar term, one function of Zero Trust framework DNA, Google's SDP was created to control remote access that crosses the authority of mobile users accessing the service. So did it not pursue Zero Trust in a comprehensive area? Returning to Forrester that generated the concept of Zero Trust, it is explained building a Zero Trust framework is a long journey and it can take years to come. Especially, it is said it should be made more comfortable than the existing system so as that the user's experience does not deteriorate and it has to be able to operate efficiently. Zero Trust means that not only does it need to be more secure, but it also needs to be user-friendly. It contains breaking the conventional wisdom that security is inconvenient. In the story of Kinderberg, we have said so far that Zero Trust is a framework, not any point solution or technology. Therefore, GTNA is a solution that is used in a transitional way until the architecture for implementing Zero Trust in the enterprise is completed, or it is highly likely that it will be limited to a specific area. A simple SDP or GTNA is not enough to implement Zero Trust. Even today's SDP or GTNA need to be combined with additional services, such as a separate ID as a service. This state of GTNA is actually appearing in the market when being absorbed by vendors, streaming or becoming SASE vendors. This proves that SASE eventually includes GTNA as a component. and that ZTNA can only pre-function when combined with other SASE components. As SD-WAN did, it is hard to survive because it can't be effective only with its own functionality. There are too many, so here's a table. Cisco acquired PortShip. Palo Alto Networks acquired CloudGenix, and Fortinet acquired OPAC. Ivanti acquired Mobilent and Persecure. Checkpoint Software Technologies acquired Order Security. Zscaler has acquired Edgewide Network and is running it as an independent service called ZTNA. Absolute Software acquired NetMotion. It was only appeared in the market after through such mergers and acquisitions. Following is the new wave for Forrester ZTNA. It may seem that ZTNA is suddenly enabled, but if you look at the size of vendor, it feels like companies that were opening some other solutions are distorting the deployment level of ZTNA. Poor SDP vendors like AppGate appears as very small dot, but in fact, as part of the U.S. government Zero Trust drive, it is a vendor that provided U.S. Department of Defense and Internal Affairs as its customers, along with more than 40 countries, with sales reaching $45 million in 2021. In the market, even though it favors sales to the government, it is shown as a very small dot. It seems as if Palo Alto or Zscaler is already achieving tens of billions of US dollars in ZTNA sales. In circle size, it seems quite apart from reality. For example, Zscaler cannot integrate its wide acquired with GIA service, so it is sold as a separate infrastructure and the service called GPA, and it is not well known in the market compared with its flagship SWG business. Forrester seems to have a strong tendency to do marketing with vendors. Lesson 3. In a seminar with Palo Alto, there was a presentation material that the market demanded a standalone ZTNA, and 86% said that they preferred a standalone ZTNA. Is it because Palo Alto hasn't yet converted it into their portfolio SASE? So, why are the ZTNA vendors sold to vendors that are almost always moving towards SASE without risking their life or death alone? You need to think a little more about the materials that Gartner or Forrester present with the vendors. Anyway, if you look at this picture, it can be seen the important firewall, SWG, CDN, and network vendors playing in the market. As if to cover all major vendors, it can be seen that vendors from various fields are included. But you can see that Kinderberg is referring to the security framework of company that Zero Trust achieved the principle of never trust and always check. And why Forrester's ZTNA analysis with vendors is talking about the same Zero Trust principle. But it is saying that the standalone ZTNA will lead market. To explain it this way, doesn't it sound like an argument that ZTNA is about to achieve Zero Trust? This is vendors marketing. However, Forrester's ZTNA analyst who was presenting with these vendors also announced that ZTNA with the most famous firewall companies explained the limitation of the ZTNA. Just by looking at this published picture, you can see its limitations. First, ZTNA is just a small component targeting VPN replacement. Second, the function required by ZTNA is a functionality that is also available in the NG firewall interwork with the authentication system to recognize the user's identity. In other words, if you additionally install NG firewall on the existing VPN, it can be implemented sufficiently. Lastly, is your VPN infrastructure really composed of only VPN concentrator like this? Is your VPN really configured in a defenseless state where you can only access through ID theft, and then you can't control any access after that? As shown in the picture, the VPN infrastructure of a company is rarely composed of only the VPN concentrator function. With VPN concentrate aren't taking all of the point solutions such as IPS, NG firewall, authentication system, and MFA, forensic, and MDM as much as you can purchase. Now, do you know that the reason why companies have not moved to ZTNA is that they and the other customers who are stubbornly using VPN are not aware of it. So they are not moving to ZTNA, rather because you know too well that there is only little difference between the two solutions. So don't replace them. You will be able to judge it. It is because we can't hear your answers. Judging from what you think, both cases don't change to GTNA. It costs money, but it's annoying because the VPNs we have trained so far fit us a lot better and users are accustomed to it now. If we go into more details, there are dozens of more reasons not to change VPN to GTNA. In a GTNA related meeting with a certain customer, we heard that the customer was saying as the VPN infrastructure possessed by them has more security ability than GTNA, and we are selling this advanced VPN infrastructure to other customers as GTNA. As SDP has beta operational complexity. This picture is how it applies SDP that Polyester talks about. To apply SDP, all applications used by the company must be registered in advance in the SDP controller and the SDP broker for the mapping policy between users and apps. This is because the connection between the user and the application can be made by namespace rather than by IP address. This can be a hugely labor-intensive task that can create mapping rules that can reach the lines from thousands to tens of thousands. Of course, there are those who say that remote access can only access a few essential applications. These people living in the past, cloud transition, and the expansion of remote work have expanded the range of applications that need to be accessed remotely to the level of access within the office. Today, it is because the application used in the company must be able to be accessed and used even at the time of working from home. In an era when more than half of our employees may work at home, it is not the year to say no to our company because of security. Then, let's assume that we are going to put some of our manpower to set up the managed rules. Do you know all applications used by employees in on-premises data centers, cloud data centers, SaaS, and etc.? According to Cisco's 2016 survey data, there is a statistic that shadow IT is over 80% unknown to IT managers. Now as the number of cloud applications grow, the percentages may have increased even more. In this situation, how can we figure out even shadow IT and set mapping rules in GTNA? Would broken or unknown applications solve the problem? No one can. Establish an important operational policy likely enough to block over 80% of business applications. For this reason, it is not that IT managers of companies do not know how good GTNA is, but isn't it a solution where GTNA cannot be used. In this screen, CATO Cosby automatically discovered the applications used by 50,000 employees through their network CATO Cloud. If you look, you can check that 1,765 applications were found. It's a huge number. In fact, to tell you from the experience of deploying company ZSDP, a two customer with more than 4,000 developers, most of the IT people in charge of network and security did not know what applications were inside. Identification of applications through scans mentioned by vendors was a rudimentary level function that could not be applied in a real environment. Since most systems broke scans that can be used for hacking, we could not actually use it. As you may know, network and security are very difficult to understand unless informed by the application development side. After 2 years of labor-intensive analysis and iterative errors, our engineers and myself gave up on the detailed setup to the customer. In the end, we experienced a project failure where we couldn't even control access at the VPN level. What we learned from the project is that SDP requires that the solution have the ability to automatically know the application, or that the customer knows all of the application, no matter how good the concept is. If it can't be implemented in practice, even the VPN is said to be 30 years old, but it can be said to be a stronger security because it can be handled well. Now, returning to the question you asked in the beginning, we can answer it. The first question was, why are VPNs alive, contrary to the saying today that we have to go from VPN to ZTA for zero trust? The answer is so far, ZTA could not find the differentiated kill function. That for any reason has to replace VPN with ZTA for company's IT managers. So, is there no way to solve these limitations of ZTA? First of all, let me explain my history briefly because there might be misunderstanding because of what I explained earlier. Since 2016, like a pioneer of ZTA, I have been launching and consulting ZTA in Korea for the first time, and with the business needs of companies that have been expanded and routinized in remote work and the transition to cloud. VPN can no longer withstand its limitation, and I have a stronger understanding than anyone else that this is a solution that has to be changed. However, it is because the concept of zero trust cannot be shaken by the marketing of independent ZTA vendors. Only if you are accurately aware of the concept of zero trust. To deploy implement zero trust, it must be a set or convergence of functions capable of performing the framework of zero trust, not a standalone ZTA solution from any specific vendor. When ZTA becomes part of a SASE, that is the convergence of network and network security. Company can benefit from ZTA beyond implementing a zero trust architecture. From now on, we will explain what kind of tremendous value you will get through CATO SASE embrace the ZTA, and how to achieve the zero trust framework through a multi-level hierarchical approach methodology centered on the key principles talked by Kinderberg, who created zero trust concept, and Google's Beyond the Curve that created SDP. In the first methodology is to identify the target to be protected and make the network microsegmentation through the identified identification. Existing networks were structured to create a boundary between users, servers, applications, and the data through firewalls and etc. On the other hand, the zero trust model logically divides these resources into very small microsegments through the ZTA gateway and allows the user's access tolerance to be strictly controlled through the ZTA gateway. Here, microsegmentation is also called network isolate, and it is not only the isolation simply between client and server, but also it refers to network segmentation that have been developed one more step that can control lateral movement between servers or between server and application and etc. CATO uses CASB's capabilities for this purpose. The following picture is the result of automatically identifying the applications used in the company by analyzing the traffic through CATO's CASB. Clicking application analysis, it can be checked the details of automatically detected applications, and it can be checked the user and detailed usage of this application, and it can be checked what kind of applications are being used for each user as well. As you can see, you can classify applications by destination. It can be also checked which applications are being used for each destination. Although this, it can be identified all of the key applications used by companies and even shadow IT. As you can see on the screen, when using CATO SASE, the detected applications are on-premises in the cloud, and you can see all applications applied to CATO Cloud, including even SaaS. This makes it easy to identify a list of hundreds to thousands of applications to which users and applications can be mapped for zero trust implementation, and the identity of the users who use each application. These capabilities are also the first gateway to a real zero trust implementation and are what makes zero trust implementation easy. Now you see CATO's ability to achieve it naturally and easily. The second methodology is simple and granular access control and continuous verification. No matter where user or resource is, you should be able to control only the connections that are allowed per their roles. This is not a method that simply ends when it is allowed through authentication, but it refers to a function that continuously monitors and verifies whether traffic is sent from a trusted user even after authentication. In the end, ZTA means that it should enable granular access control, not only in the uncontrollable Internet section, but also in a WAN section, which was considered a reliable section. The strong advantage of CATO SASE is here too. CATO's ZTA controller function is included as part of CATO's POP software stack. After identification, there is no need to install SDP connectors that must be performed on ZTA solution of other vendor. Accordingly, the labor-intensive hard work to be registered the mapping of identities in the SDP connector is eliminated. Users and applications are already connected and analyzed based on full identity in SASE POPs. Therefore, user's access is verified, and the environment to be accessed only to the site and application that is permitted by CATO's next generation firewall security policy is naturally implemented. This screen is a network rule configured through the software-defined network function possessed by CATO SASE. This becomes a very important function for zero trust. CATO, like the existing network infrastructure, is not a structure where all traffic can travel freely. Once connected as when composed with network equipment such as routers and switches, when optimization equipment, QoS, and etc. This is because CATO can provide complete software-defined network function. Precisely speaking, because it can be possible to set up route per application in SDN. If the route is not created through network rules, the route through which the user can access the application itself disappears. This software-defined network function helps creating microsegmentation more naturally for zero trust framework. After that, you can implement one-step more granular access policy through user identification and application identification via next-generation firewall. CATO's next-generation firewall can be applied to both the Internet section and the WAN section. In general, access rights are implemented differently in the Internet section and in the WAN section. CATO is divided into Internet firewall and WAN firewall so as to rationally and easily implement the real security policies of companies. This screen shows the policies of Internet firewall. This screen is WAN firewall. If you have ever implemented a firewall policy, it can easily see that the access control patterns on the two firewalls were quite different. CATO SASE enables a very effective zero-trust architecture through software-defined network technology and next-generation firewall technology. The third methodology is visibility, secure, and threat prevention. The ZTA gateway is only a part of zero-trust architecture. Once a user accesses an application, all traffic must still be inspected and logged from network-based threats, and administrators must monitor the logs regularly to ensure that the users are only attempting to access the systems which they have been authorized to access. Some ZTA vendors talk if only microsegmentation could be done in a way that maps users and applications. Zero trust seems to be achieved. However, even if it becomes microsegmentation, as you can see, it is the same for many users to access multiple resources. Therefore, of course, security such as next-generation firewall, SWG, next-generation malware, and IPS must be additionally applied to the traffic they are accessing. As you can see here, CATO can apply IPS across all areas of the network, and it can be posed to apply anti-malware and NG anti-malware to the whole area, and it can be posed to execute detailed access control for SaaS and cloud applications through application control of CATO's CASB functionality. Only it can be checked the current status of all security through the threat dashboard. Companies must implement a zero trust architecture to achieve the principle of zero trust in their IT environment. The beginning is to identify the surface to protect, and the implemented zero trust is the most important factor. The surfaces to be protected are data, assets, applications, and services. If GTNA or SDP is combined with CATO SASE, which is the convergence of various functions of network services and network security services, it is very easy to identify the protective surface, which is beginning of zero trust, with SASE, advanced security functionality for approved connection can be provided together. Of course, even if it is connected through a zero trust principle, it is because connection necessarily requires advanced security functionality. There are currently 5 categories as zero trust solutions in the market. Those are multi-factor authentication solution, single sign-on solution, IAM solution, GTNA, and SASE. All of these are solutions that implement the zero trust principle of not trusting all users and entities. However, a zero trust architecture must have not only secure access, but also various security and monitoring functions, protecting the network from security breaches. Among these solutions, SASE is the only one that provides a complete zero trust architecture of a company. All other solutions require various additional solutions to achieve this goal, and the combination with these may be occurred the unpredictable consequences. Finally, zero trust should be applied to all areas of network. Most SSE vendors or cloud SWG vendors, the CATO SASE platform, provide the following capabilities for companies to implement a zero trust architecture. Enables integrated client-based or currently browser-based remote access. Provides strong authentication through secure MFA. Grant authorization based on application-level granular access policies based on user identity. Provide deep packet inspection and intelligent malware protection engine for all traffic for continuous protection against threats. Provide advanced security functions such as next-generation firewall, IPS, and SWG. Provide optimized end-to-end performance in on-premises and cloud resources through self-global backbone. Provide more than 70 POPs in the optimal locations to connect all the edges nearby from anywhere in the world. CATO Cloud provides 99.999% uptime SLAs. We'll wrap up today's explanation. It has been past more than 10 years since the concept of zero trust was introduced, and for its implementation, most organizations have been working hard. An attempt was made to strengthen ID-based access control by applying multi-factor authentication and single sign-on solutions, or by applying IAM solutions, and recently more and more companies are introducing or applying GTNA solutions. However, at a time when today's complex hybrid environments have to be accommodated in an IT infrastructure with multiple point solutions are hodgepodge due to redundant technologies by multiple vendors, unnecessary complex can be added. In addition, when trying to build zero trust by rebalancing the existing infrastructure, various types of microsegmentation tools, SDP tools, and proxies that can recognize identity should be newly built, and these tools have to include VPNs, multi-factor authentication, device approval. intrusion prevention systems, and single sign-on solutions, and etc. Gartner reiterates the SESI announcement addressing this complexity. SESI cannot consist of a combination of multiple vendors or point solutions. It's clearly drawing a line on the direction of portfolio SESI. As CATO SESI provides remote access to the WAN that companies have used in the existing network infrastructure. CATO SESI is a cloud-based service providing security functions on top of the WAN and remote access that companies have used in the existing network infrastructure. By providing ZTA, SD-WAN, Firewall as a Service, SWG, and CASB as one software stack, we are implementing a complete identity-based zero trust architecture. Today, companies can easily implement a zero trust architecture and bring improved user experience just by selecting CATO SESI. Thank you.